All right, guys, so what have we been talking about in class this week? So this video is for students that are at home for one reason or another. We started talking about the circulatory system or the heart. This is what your exam's going to be on, your exam or your test. Will strictly be on the heart. You have your notes packet that's up on Google Classroom, and you also have the link to the textbook, so you can start filling it in. We are not going through the whole notes packet. Don't have time. We don't have time. So we're basically covering the anatomy of the heart, blood flow through the heart, heart conductivity, which is in here, and blood vessels, the different types of blood vessels, with basically the difference between arteries, veins, and capillaries, because there's differences in those. I would highly recommend you get the notes, if you can print them out, print them, and then use your textbook to fill them in, because you should have the link to the textbook from like way back when. If you go back to like August on Google Classroom, it should be in there. If you have trouble finding it, let me know. Basically, the first day, we talked about the first page and the second page of notes, which is basically the anatomy of the heart. We talked about, if you fill in your notes on the first page, we talked about how there's 3 layers to the heart. The heart has the layer that's in the inside. We call it the endocardium. Okay, so the inside of the heart, where the blood vessels of the heart and all that are, is called the endocardium. We think of endo, inside, even though inside, of course, starts with an I. But like we said before in a previous chapter with the bones, endo, inside. So the inside part of the heart is the smooth layer of the heart, is the endocardium. We talked about the myocardium. I'll put a little star by that if I were you. The myocardium is the muscular layer of the heart, because basically, in a sense, the heart is a really big muscle. It just contracts all day long and pumps blood throughout the body. So the myocardium is the muscular layer of the heart. Then you've got the pericardium. The pericardium is basically the sac that the heart sits in, and I'll post a picture of it up on Google Classroom later. But we talked about in class how when the heart beats, you don't want a lot of friction there. You don't want things rubbing against the heart. So there's the sac that it sits in, which is the outer layer of the heart. It's called the pericardium, and you also have pericardial fluid inside that sac. So it's almost, in a sense, kind of floating in some water and fluid. That way there's no friction there when it's beating. You can get people that will get, an infection in the pericardium of their heart, or their pericardial fluid gets infected, which is not good, causes the heart to get inflamed and things like that. But those are the 3 layers of the heart. So on the first page of your notes, I would focus on that: the endocardium, the myocardium, and the pericardium. We talked about the septum of the heart. If you look at the heart of the picture I put up, it's got this line that goes through it. And then you've got the blue side of the heart, which is deoxygenated blood, and the red side of the heart, which is oxygenated blood. We talked about it, and I asked them, why would there be a septum there? Why would there be a divider there? And one of the students said, well, you don't want deoxygenated blood and oxygenated blood mixing together, which is exactly correct. So that's why they have a septum in the heart that keeps it separate. When the blood first comes into the heart, it's deoxygenated. It goes to the lungs, gets oxygenated, and then it goes to the other side of the heart. We say deoxygenated is blue and oxygenated is red. So if you hear people that say, oh, you've got bright, good blood, bright red blood, that means it's full of oxygen. Typically, veins carry deoxygenated blood, so that's why we illustrate them as blue. And we say that arteries carry oxygenated blood, which is why we illustrate them, or oxygenated blood, as red. The only way that is different is in the heart. In the heart, for whatever reason, they flip it. If you look at the anatomy of the heart, the pulmonary arteries carry deoxygenated blood and they're blue, and the pulmonary veins carry oxygenated blood and they're red. Typically, veins carry deoxygenated blood and are blue. Typically, arteries carry oxygenated blood and are red, except for the heart, it's flipped for whatever reason, okay? So we talked about the septum. We started basically this bottom part of the first page over on into the second page. It's just the anatomy of the heart. We talked about how it's divided into 4 chambers. You need to watch those Khan Academy videos. They're great for the heart. The heart's divided into 4 chambers. The 2 upper chambers are the atria. The bottom chambers are the ventricles. You've got the valves in there. On the right side is the tricuspid. On the left side is the mitral bicuspid valve. And the valves keep the blood flowing in one direction. You don't want blood backing up. So if you watch, I'll post another video up of how the heart pumps. The valves are constantly opening and closing. So when the atria releases the blood and the blood goes in the ventricles, those valves slam shut. That way the blood doesn't go back into the atria. Same thing when the blood goes into the pulmonary, through the pulmonary valve and into the pulmonary artery. That door slams shut so the blood doesn't back up into the ventricles. So it's constantly opening and closing. when you listen to your heart and you hear dun dun dun, that noise, we call it the lub-dub noise, that's your valves in your heart opening and closing. You do have people that have issues with their valves and the blood does back up and it can be a problem. You hear people getting valve replacements and stuff like that. So basically the little bottom part of the notes here on the first page, and then pretty much the second page is all anatomy of the heart. I would definitely fill that in. You need to put a star by the top where it says, you know, what atrium receives blood as it returns from the body's cells. That's going to be the right atrium. Or what atrium receives oxygenated blood from the lungs. That's the left atrium. You have to know the pathway of blood through the heart, which is why I posted 2 other videos. If you're looking at the picture of the heart, follow the arrows. The arrows will show you exactly the pathway of blood and how it flows. You need to know that the right atrium does not receive oxygenated blood. It receives deoxygenated blood. It's the left atrium that receives oxygenated blood. You know which side the valves are on. You know which valve is in between the right atrium and the right ventricle. That's the tricuspid valve. What valve is between maybe the left atrium and the left ventricle? That's your bicuspid or your mitral valve, and things like that. That's the anatomy of the heart. You need to know, you know, how it's set up. What else? That was pretty much it for the first day. Y'all, they labeled the heart. So let me see. Let me see if I have a picture real quick. I do. I'm just going to make sure it's this one here. So basically we labeled the heart with the lines. You know, I had a picture up on the board, on the smart board, and then we just labeled this heart. So this is the heart you're going to get for your exam, that you're going to have to label it. And so when I said labeled the heart in Google Classroom, this is what I wanted you to label to practice. No different than labeling the skeleton, same thing, except it's the heart. And then you're gonna have to flip that paper over and put blood flow through the heart, which I'll put a video up of that in a second. So if you have any questions, let me know. Yesterday and today, we're talking about blood vessels. The Khan Academy video that's gonna post this morning is a great one. You have to watch the video and answer the questions on veins and arteries and that kind of stuff. That's a great review of what we're talking about in class today. And then I'll post another video up later about heart conductivity, because we're going to be talking about that today too. Hopefully this video helps. Email me if you have any questions. And just make sure you're studying labeling the heart and the pathway of blood through the heart. Okay? Have a great day. Hope to see you soon.